Hi everyone, I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From 156 with Katie. What have you been reading? I read Miranda July's All Fours, which, if you are friends with me on Facebook, you've seen there's a lot of people talking about it, responding to what I said about it. And I am always pleased when there's a conversation about a book. This is a book to be incredibly singular and well, here's what George Saunders has to say about it. A giddy, bold, mind-blowing tour de force. Not wrong. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good. You made it. You
I
did
did
it. And it was not
good.
hard.
No, I did have to get a stand for my
Oh,
phone though,
yes.
which I probably should have had a long time ago.
They're handy.
Yeah,
I
I'm finding
recommend
that out.
them. Yeah. Yeah. Once you have one, you're like, oh, this is nice. Um, so I don't know. Would you like to talk about anything? What are you reading? I just talked about what
Uh,
I'm reading or what
I'm
I read.
reading Tom Lake
Oh, that's a good
by
one.
Ann Patchett. It took me a little bit to get into it,
Hmm.
but now I'm in.
I'm kind of like just here for her. I just sort of read whatever she writes. I mean, it's not like I liked it better than the whatever house, the one before. What was that one? The Blue
You know,
House,
I
the
I
something house.
I haven't read much of Ann
Oh,
Patchett, which is maybe a good thing because now I can.
yes, I loved
Another
Commonwealth.
things to
That's my
read.
favorite by far. Commonwealth, my favorite. Loved it.
Okay.
But there a lot of it takes place in Southern California where I live and grew up. So
Ah,
I have a soft spot for those kinds of things. Did you find, as a Midwesterner, you're a lifetime Midwesterner, right?
yes,
Did you
I am.
find Tom Lake? I mean, I know it's Michigan, but it's like, did you find parts of it? Are they resonant for you? Do they
You mean
speak
the
to you
whole
at all or
art
no?
town thing?
Yeah,
The small town. No, I guess I'm sort of fascinated by the cherries
very, me too.
because I love cherries and just the way she talks about how they the sweet ones
Mhm.
and how you have to harvest them and get them moving and all that kind of stuff. I found kind of fascinating. But
She kind of plays into the fantasy, I think, of the small town living on the farm life a little bit for me.
yeah,
I'm like, I
yeah.
don't know anybody who really lived this life, but cool. Like it's a lot of hard work. But I enjoyed the book. I thought it's interesting now that we're hitting books that have the pandemic in it. Like I feel
Yes,
like I'm reading more and more books that have the pandemic in it.
yes.
And interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to see if people how they handle it or if they just ignore it,
Hmm.
you know, kind of thing. So
Yes. I just read Miranda July's All Fours. She ignores it completely, which is fine by me. Um, which I don't mind. I don't really mind either way, but it's just interesting to see what they choose. So, speaking of choosing, would you like to read your poem?
sure. Okay. Let's see if I can get through
You
this. Uh,
can.
all right. I am from stacks of books and dreams, from lifesavers and cherry Kool-Aid. I am from a brick Queen Anne with two turrets, 3 stories, 4 fireplaces, 5 children, and 1 bathtub. Stately, drafty, whispers of past residents lingering around corners. I am from the oak tree taller than the house, spring green leaves growing darker, turning bright yellow before descending, exposing stark, empty branches. I'm from popsicles relegated to the far front steps, from sarcasm not always to amuse, but to cope. From Bunny, a born salesman who made $1 but spent three. From Joan, who left college to get married 3 credits shy of graduation. His gin and tonics on repeat, her mother's little helpers, and sherry before breakfast. Clouds of unfiltered smoke lingering, embedded in fabric, walls, lungs. I'm from men with the love language of, how's your car running? From the little corner in the big corner, measured in distance from the house. From we're off like a dirty shirt, announcing departures. From if it is broken, don't fix it. From secrets held so long they become beliefs, taking generations to unravel. I'm from the middle of five, not Catholic, just careless Protestants. Episcopal by way of Unitarianism, an easy habit to break. I'm from old St. Paul, like F. Scott Fitzgerald from the wrong side of Summit Avenue, the lure of money and mansions just out of reach. From English immigrants long ago landed, Irish and Norwegians within generational memory. From family lore of Native American blood, disproved by DNA. I'm from butter that lived uncovered on the counter, mom's hot dish, frozen fish sticks, and Valentine's Day heart-shaped meatloaf, red with ketchup frosting. I'm from 453 Portland, a house that will always be home, held together with underlying love and untold truths. From many gone too soon, a legacy of questions left unanswered.
Beautiful, Katie. I'm so glad that you persevered.
Well, thank you
So,
for the encouragement.
so that was going to be my first question. What was the experience like for you writing this?
A lot of time I find with writing that I'm really into this sort of research phase.
Interesting.
And then you get into the writing and then it's, you have to do something with
Mm-hmm.
it, right? But I mean, I did find the sort of going back and thinking about that part of my life, and uh, very helpful. I haven't done my memoir. I haven't worked on a memoir,
Mm-hmm.
so I haven't got like this store of things in my
Mm-hmm.
head. And I did talk with my siblings, and it was fun because trying to remember things and excuse me, really realizing what we don't remember because it didn't happen, which is like, I'm like, what advice did dad give us? And no one could come up with anything. So,
Yeah.
and the most I got was sort of indirect
Mm-hmm.
wisdom, I guess. Nothing like saying you should do X or whatever kind of thing. So, but I
Did you
enjoyed
see
it.
Sonia's comment? You did it. You did it wonderfully. Yes, Sonia, she did it.
Thank you, Sonia. I had reached out to her because I did have a, another friend in my writing group who is a poet, and I have not done poetry. So she gave me some poetic advice.
Mm-hmm.
And
What
then
was
I
her
had
poetic
also,
advice? I'm curious.
oh, it was, I mean, she reviewed it and
Oh, she
it
did,
was,
like
it was
specifically
almost
to your
more
poem.
like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was more like, uh, ways to tighten things up a little bit.
Yeah.
I had a few
Mm-hmm.
too many extra words in some things that weren't necessarily needed,
Mm-hmm.
but and then I had also reached out to Sonia to ask her a few questions too, since she's already done this.
Yes, she has a while ago now. I've been doing this a while. Um, well, whatever you did, I thought it came out. It really transported me, and I'm from a family of five, though they were Catholic till I'm from the second wife, so that marriage was not Catholic, but my brother's was. Their parents was, and I don't know. I just the gin and tonic. I mean, my parents didn't drink. My mother didn't take. Mother's little helpers, but all of that feels very familiar. Like I don't know. I feel like it's just something that was, I guess, in the zeitgeist. Like it was a lot of people were doing these things and not really talking about them. And now we look back on it like, oh, that was just normal.
Well, and I do think though, it thinking about it has made me, a little more empathetic to my mother, who
Hmm.
had four children under the age of 4 at one point, or under the age of 6 at one
Hmm.
point,
Hmm.
and her disabled mother living with us.
Yeah.
And that's when she said she said to me once when I was an adult, we were talking, I don't know how we got on the subject, but she said, well, I actually did for a short time drink sherry before breakfast, have a little sherry before breakfast. But it made me understand why she would do that when I think about what she was
Oh,
having to deal
for
with.
sure. I mean, I think most of them, many of them were dealing with large families and a lot of expectations of how to run a household.
Hmm.
Um, and so, like you say, so many kids so close together, which is just like, I mean, you couldn't be present even if you wanted to be. Like, there's just too much. You're spread too thin.
Well, and it was before permanent press.
Yeah,
Think about that.
yeah. I know, and I read
All the
something that's
ironing.
I, I know, and I am very comfortable with wearing clothes that don't need ironing or wearing wrinkly clothes because it's like something that I was just like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and my mom has stories of being the oldest and doing the family's ironing. Like ironing was such a time suck.
Yes. Yes. No. And I have a couple things that are sort of, uh, I call it against my religion, and that is ironing for the most part
Mhm.
and hand wash clothing. Those
Yeah,
kinds of
right?
things.
Who buys those?
No, I
I
don't
always
know.
think that when I see it. I mean, I feel like over time there's less and less of it, but it's like, who has time for that or the inclination, even if they do have the time? That's not how I want to spend it.
Right. Right. Um, yeah. So, but yeah, I appreciate all my siblings. I mean, I didn't always then,
Yeah.
but yeah, we were all pretty close in age, the first four, and then the fifth was 6 years after the last one. So,
Mhm.
it's, uh, and people would ask, it was an era where people would ask, that was my father's statement. They would say, "Are you Catholic?"
Mhm.
I mean, because it was not an offensive or
Yeah.
invasive thing to say if you had a large family.
Oh, yeah.
Even though the family of nine behind us was Catholic and we were only five.
Five
But
was small
that's
back
yeah,
then. I
yeah,
mean, many of our peers, it was like, yeah, eight, nine, seven.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But yeah, I heard him say that. No, we're not Catholic, just careless Protestants. So, which I find very amusing. So
Yeah. So you and your siblings, so you spoke to your siblings, right? So
I
you had the
did.
research
I did.
phase.
Hmm.
So how did you remember things differently or did you all have a similar?
Some people remember, some of them remembered things very specifically to them.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like my memory too. But there's a lot that couldn't get in there, like sitting on the stairs and the upper flight of stairs waiting for dad to get the tree lights on and for them to get their coffee ready before we would go down for Christmas, things like that. So it was kind of fun to have conversations about some of that.
Hmm.
But yeah, and I kept kind of after him because you always think of things later. And one of my brothers was like, "Are you still working on that?"
Yes. Yes, I am. The popsicle thing made me laugh too because I don't think I had a popsicle inside until I was like a grown up.
Well, and
It's
we
like, oh, you
had,
can eat popsicles inside. Like, that's
uh,
fine.
and it's
I mean,
like
I
the house
guess
had
I did.
steps going right up to it, but then there was a sidewalk with two steps down to the main sidewalk,
Hmm.
and that was the far front steps. So that was, I mean, that's just where we ate popsicles. And it
Hmm.
makes total sense because who wants that in the house?
No, no, it is, and I think it is the larger groups of people too. If it's one kid, you can have a popsicle inside. I mean, I'm realizing I did eat them inside as I became the only one in the house, and I didn't have friends over. Like after I said that, I thought, no, I
Oh,
did
yeah.
eat them.
Yeah.
But it was when when there's just a lot of people, children to manage. Outside is a great place for mess.
Yes. Well, and especially when I think about it, the far front steps meant the sweet liquid was far enough away from the house, so it's not going to draw any ants in.
Right?
But my mother also would say if my brothers were wrestling and stuff, take that outside.
Yeah,
So get it out of the house. So,
yeah, yeah. Any other thoughts or reflections on the experience or your poem?
you know, I I ended up being pretty happy with it, even though I don't always know. I don't feel like I know what a poetry's all about,
Me neither.
but I but I did really have fun with it,
That's the point.
and it makes me wonder if I'm going to do more of this because I have been doing a little bit of experimenting with. I haven't submitted anything yet, but like the 100-word
Yeah, yeah, the
things
flash.
but 100-word like 5-minute
Yeah,
lit kind of thing. So
I just had one last week because Sonia shared that she had done one. And so then I went and wrote one. So
oh, cool.
Sonia, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it. it just feels, I think because I started with Twitter when it first
Oh yeah.
was new,
Hmm.
and I've always felt that it helped my writing to
Yeah,
have to hone into 140 characters.
for sure.
Um, and then it went to 280, and I was kind of annoyed by that, but
I
it's
think a lot
fine.
of people were annoyed by that.
But it helped me sort of craft things shorter,
Hmm.
which is why I think I'm finding it so much harder to work on a longer form book because it's
Yeah.
like kind of unwieldy.
Yeah. Resources are middle name, she says. I mean, it's a good middle name. Yeah, she shared hers in co-writing, and I was like, "Oh, that's fun," because I like Flash as well. I think I just like any sort of container.
Mhm.
I am definitely, obviously, I love this prompt and this container, but like, oh, it's 5 minutes and it's 100 words. Okay, that's a fun challenge. I just kind of like, I don't know, I like an excuse to think about things from a different perspective or a
Yeah.
different, um, I don't and so it was interesting to me what came up to be written about. Like, what's an interesting 5 minutes in my life? Um, and you should try it.
No, I have been trying it,
Okay.
but I tend to like when I started this because you and I started talking about this a few months ago, and you said September, and so then of course it's like, oh, that's way in the
Yeah.
future. So, and then I was working on a few other things, and I need to revisit that. But it makes me feel like I'm cheating on my book
Oh,
sometimes. But
yeah.
it is nice to finish something.
It is nice to finish. I agree. Like, I mean, I think it's a balance. This is something we talk about in our writers group, like having some balance. Like, I think you do need, at least personally, I do need to have some focus where I'm just thinking about the manuscript.
Hmm.
Like, I can't do too, but then sometimes it's good to take a break and like you say, finish something, share it with people. Um, I don't know. It was nice just to even have something to just kind of share with the world. Like, oh, hey, look, I wrote this thing. Like, that was fun.
Yeah, and I feel that way. I feel a little bit more energized. August, for some reason, I feel like is always permanently going to be like vacation brain, even if I'm retired or whatever,
Hmm.
right? It's just, it's harder for me to like focus on things that are, I don't know, like writing.
I
But
think it's good though to take time off.
yeah,
I need to, and I do, and I had to because I had a pinched nerve, so I couldn't type. So I really did have to take time off, like not fake time off. Real can't do anything time off. Um, and then I came back to it with so much more energy because I honestly missed it.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. No, I think I'm ready to tackle the thorny chap section that I was avoiding.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. I didn't know what your book was about until I read your bio. So I was like, oh, I'm glad Katie came onto here so I could know what you've been working on all of this time. Because we don't
yeah,
necessarily talk about that in co-writing, other than just kind of, oh, I'm working on my manuscript.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Well, and it's just it's been challenging because it's as I said, I started. Uh, anyway, I had a teacher who said you picked the most complex thing for your first
Yeah.
book, and I sort of fell into it, um, interviewing a friend's husband about his life, and grew up in East Harlem, and during the 60s and 70s, and there was a lot going on, so
Yeah.
and ended up going to Puerto Rican, went to an all-white boarding school in Connecticut, and actually came here to Minnesota to Carleton, which is in a
Hmm.
small town south of here.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was just fascinated by the stories, and then it gave me a chance to do what I really love to, which is research into
Hmm.
some of the now historical, even though I was actually alive during the time, but things that I didn't really necessarily pay much attention to during the civil rights era and things like that.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's complicated.
Well, and there
Um,
was no internet. So it was really what was in the newspaper.
yes,
I
yes,
mean, it was a different, or books that were published after the fact. But I mean, there just was so much less awareness of what was happening because there just wasn't the same level of access to
right,
information.
right.
So,
For better or for worse, either way,
yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, any
So,
last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I thank you so much for doing this. I have been trying to sell you to this project to everyone I know, including my siblings. I don't know
Yes,
if they will take it
I would love
up
that.
on it, but
I've had a mother and daughter, and I've had cousins, but I have yet to have siblings because it's something that fascinates me. How how we all see
differently
it
it would
differently.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious to, I haven't shared it with my siblings yet. I wanted to
Hmm.
share it when it's posted because it's like, I'm curious to see what they think, but um, yeah, I'm curious to see what they think.
Well, thank you for facing your discomfort, Katie,
Well,
and joining me.
and thank you for your encouragement
Sure.
because I think I really would have missed out on something if I just sort of said no. So
Oh,
thank you.
that's nice
All
to
right.
hear. I think it's fun, and I think it helps us believe in ourselves a little bit more. So it's worth the time. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Katie. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.